In the blood-soaked soil of a Mississippi plantation, where every whisper carried the weight of chains, one woman held the keys to life and death. Not with a whip or a gun, but with secrets harvested from God's own cursed garden. Poisons that could steal a soul without a trace. But when she uncovered murders disguised as fate, divine retribution stirred in the shadows, and hell was about to bloom. In the sweltering haze of Madison County, Mississippi, where the Pearl River coiled like a serpent through fields of white gold, the Riverside Plantation sprawled across 2,000 acres of fertile torment. It was autumn 1841, a season when the cotton bolls burst open like wounds, and the air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and human sweat. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows that stretched like accusing fingers across the land, as if the Almighty himself were pointing out the sins buried beneath the soil. Here, amid the creak of wooden plows and the muffled cries of the oppressed, lived Eliza, a name whispered in fear, though her given one was Hannah, bestowed like a brand by those who claimed ownership over her flesh and soul. Eliza's domain was the kitchen, a squat brick outbuilding detached from the grand white-columned manor, its separation a calculated cruelty masked as prudence. Edward Collier, the master of Riverside, proclaimed it a safeguard against flames devouring his opulent home. But to those who toiled within its walls, it was a fortress of isolation, a place where secrets simmered alongside stews, and knowledge fermented like forbidden wine. The kitchen's interior gleamed with the patina of constant use, iron pots hanging from hooks like nooses, wooden counters scarred by countless knives, and a massive hearth that roared like the mouth of perdition, its flames dancing shadows on the walls that mimicked the writhing forms of the damned. For 23 years, Eliza had reigned here, her hands calloused from kneading dough and stirring cauldrons, her eyes sharpened by survival. She was 37 now, her frame wiry and unyielding, her skin the deep mahogany of ancestral resilience, marked by faint scars from splattering grease and the occasional lash for a meal deemed imperfect. Her knowledge wasn't born of malice but of necessity. Gathered like forbidden fruit from Eden's darker groves. She knew the poisons that lurked in every corner of the estate, not as weapons, but as silent guardians against the whims of fate. The white oleander, its petals innocent as snow, blooming along the manicured paths where ladies strolled in lace, one leaf brewed into tea could convulse a man in agony, mimicking the grip of cholera. The jimsonweed, tangled amid the cotton rows, its trumpet flowers beckoning like sirens, inducing visions of hell before stopping the breath. Castor beans, harvested for their oil in the pressing sheds, their seeds a deadly alchemy when crushed, symptoms of fever, vomiting, death so natural no doctor would suspect the hand of man, let alone the wrath of God. Foxglove towered in the medicinal garden, its purple bells tolling silent warnings. A tincture too strong could slow the heart to a whisper, then silence it forever, as if the soul had been called home prematurely. Nightshade berries dangled like temptations from thorny vines, their juice a swift thief of life, turning curiosity into eternal sleep. Water hemlock lined the irrigation ditches, its roots a paralytic curse, felling the unwary with seizures that echoed the biblical plagues. Eliza had learned these truths not from forbidden tomes, she could scarcely read the labels on spice jars, but from the raw tapestry of tragedy. A child, no more than 5, plucking berries mistaken for sweets, his tiny body arching in final torment under the merciless sun. A field hand, brushing against hemlock while dredging mud, collapsing in frothing fits as his comrades watched helplessly, their prayers rising like smoke to an indifferent heaven. Even the mistress's tonics, measured with porcelain spoons in the stillroom, revealed their dual nature, healing in drops, damning in drams. This arsenal of knowledge was Eliza's unspoken armor, a spiritual talisman in a world where her body was chattel, her labor eternal penance for sins not her own. It whispered of divine equity, a balance to the scales tipped by human greed. For in the Bible she had heard recited during forced Sunday sermons, verses twisted to justify chains, she gleaned hints of retribution. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Poisons were nature's vengers, God's hidden judgments blooming in the undergrowth, ready to reclaim what man had corrupted. Eliza hoarded this wisdom like manna in the wilderness, never wielding it, but feeling its weight like a crucifix hidden beneath her apron, a reminder that even the enslaved could touch the hem of power. The plantation pulsed with the rhythms of bondage, dawn bells summoning souls to the fields, or backs bent under the lash of overseers, harvesting cotton that stained fingers red with pricks and blood. Edward Collier, a man of 45 with a face etched by ambition and excess, ruled this domain with the fervor of a fallen angel. His eyes, cold as river stones, surveyed his empire from the veranda, where he sipped mint juleps laced with rum, plotting expansions into sugarcane despite the soil's protests. 87 souls, men, women, children, were tallied in his ledgers, their worth measured in pounds of yield, their sufferings footnotes to profit. The air carried the metallic tang of sweat, the sweet rot of overripe fruit from orchards, and the acrid smoke from burning stubble, mingling into a miasma that clung to clothes and skin like guilt. Eliza's role elevated her slightly above the fray, a precarious perch. Bought at 14 from a Natchez auction block, her origins shrouded in the haze of a New Orleans scullery where she had absorbed the arts of cuisine by osmosis, she had proven invaluable. No formal tutelage, but an innate alchemy. Transforming coarse cornmeal into golden loaves that melted on the tongue, seasoning venison with herbs that evoked distant forests, crafting pies whose crusts flaked like autumn leaves. Collier's table was his throne, where he wooed bankers and senators with feasts that masked his mounting debts. For this, Eliza was granted mercies, fuller rations of salt pork and molasses, a cot in the kitchen's annex rather than the drafty slave quarters where families huddled on dirt floors, an exemption from the field's brutal sun. Yet privilege bred peril, her proximity to power meant eternal vigilance, her every dish a potential accusation if a guest fell ill. This isolation fostered envy among her kin, murmurs of house pet from field hands whose lashes she escaped, wary glances from house servants who envied her autonomy. But Eliza navigated these waters with the grace of a biblical Esther, offering scraps to the hungry, herbs for ailments, her kitchen a covert sanctuary where weary souls found momentary respite. Only with Miriam, known as Dinah to the colliers, the seamstress whose needle mended both cloth and spirits, did she share a bond forged in shared terror. Arriving months apart as frightened girls, they had woven a tapestry of trust, a nod warning of the master's foul mood, a shared glance conveying solidarity amid the storm. Miriam's eyes, deep pools of sorrow, held stories of lost children and stolen freedoms, her hands steady despite the tremors of exhaustion. It was Miriam who first pierced the veil of normalcy that autumn evening, as Eliza pounded bread dough on the flour-dusted counter, the rhythmic thuds echoing like a heartbeat in the dimming light. The kitchen glowed with lantern flicker, shadows playing across shelves laden with jars of preserves, peaches glowing amber like trapped sunlight, figs dark as sin. "She's altering dresses again," Miriam murmured from the doorway, her voice a thread in the night. 3 this week, let out at the waist. Eliza's knuckles whitened in the dough, but her face remained a mask. "Water retention," she claims. A pause, heavy as unsaid prayers. But the retching, 4th morning in a row. Their eyes locked, a silent sermon passing between them, the implications of new life in a house rotting from within. Catherine Collier, at 32, bore the weight of 14 years wed to Edward, her once vibrant beauty faded to porcelain fragility. 3 children marked her trials: Margaret, 12, with her mother's poise and a budding defiance; Edward Jr., 9, his innocence curdling into cruelty; and little Thomas, claimed by fever at 4, his ghost haunting the halls like an unabsolved sin. Catherine's grief had carved hollows in her cheeks, invited headaches that confined her to darkened rooms, where she prayed for redemption from a God who seemed deaf to her pleas. A pregnancy now? It could be manna or malediction, softening Edward's rage, fueled by gambling losses and failed ventures, or amplifying her fears, echoing the biblical curse of Eve's travail. The household teetered on apocalypse's edge, Edward's absences to Charleston parlors where dice rolled like judgments, whispers of mistresses draining coffers, demands for credit against harvests that mocked the parable of the sower. Thomas Barrett, the overseer, a hulking figure with whiskey-reddened eyes, enforced order with a bullwhip that sang psalms of pain. Tension simmered like a pot left too long on the fire, arguments with kin over inheritances, Margaret's secret perusal of smuggled tracts decrying slavery as abomination, Edward Jr.'s sadistic games with creatures, burning ants as if practicing for greater fires. But darker omens shadowed Riverside, 3 deaths in as many months, each a verse in a dirge of doubt. Old Samuel, 70 winters etched in his bent frame, felled in June's blaze while picking, his heart bursting like overripe fruit. Apoplexy, the doctor intoned, as expected in one so ancient. Ruth, 19 and blooming with child, hemorrhaging in July's midnight, her cries fading like echoes in a tomb. Miscarriage, commonplace tragedy. Jonas, the robust driver, writhing after August's midday meal, vomit staining the earth before his spirit fled, spoiled provisions, the verdict. Eliza had prepared that fateful repast, pork fresh from the slaughter, greens crisp from the garden, all tasted by her own lips. No taint, no curse, yet death had come calling. These losses gnawed at her soul, a dissonance like David's harp strings snapping. Death was no stranger in this vale of tears, but the cadence felt orchestrated, a symphony of silence where poison could conduct unseen. In the quiet hours, as crickets chirped vespers outside her window, Eliza pondered biblical parallels: Pharaoh's plagues, Herod's slaughter, sins visited upon the innocent. Young Edward Jr.'s visits unnerved her further. He lounged by the hearth, firelight gilding his cherubic face into something demonic, peppering questions with a serpent's cunning. "What if you erred, Eliza? Mistook hemlock for parsley?" His voice piped innocence, but his eyes gleamed with forbidden fruit's allure. "I know every whisper of the earth, young master," she replied, knife-slicing carrots with metronomic precision, each cut a prayer for restraint. "God's gifts heal or harm by measure." He probed the still-room's mysteries, Catherine's domain of vials and virtues, disappointment etching his brow when she demurred that night. As the manor slumbered under a moon veiled in clouds, Eliza crossed into sacrilege. A hidden key, forged in secrecy with the blacksmith's complicity, extra rations his Judas silver, unlocked the stillroom. The air thick with lavender and laudanum, shelves arrayed like an apothecary's altar. Chamomile for slumber's grace, willow for pain's absolution, digitalis for hearts faltering like faith. But below, shrouded in shadow, a jar labeled arsenic, for vermin. Half emptied since last inventory, its crystalline powder a snow of death. Arsenic, insidious as Satan's whispers, accumulating like unconfessed sins, symptoms mirroring nature's decay, nausea, frailty, the soul's quiet exodus. Her hands trembled, holding judgment's vessel, visions flooding, Samuel's collapse, Ruth's blood, Jonas's agony, all veils for murder. Who wielded this? Catherine, with access and ailments masking motive? Edward, culling costs from ledgers of life? Or another, puppeteering from shadows? The room spun, a confessional where truth damned the confessor. Replacing the jar, she fled to her cot, the night alive with omens, owls hooting requiems, wind rattling shutters like rattling bones. Sleep evaded, replaced by vigiled prayers to a God who armed the weak with knowledge, yet bound them in silence. Dawn broke with deceptive serenity, the sky blushing like a guilty cheek. Eliza rose, kindling the hearth's embers, her movements a liturgy of deception. Cornmeal mush bubbled for the fields, aromas wafting like incense, but her mind mapped conspiracies. Arsenic's genius lay in subtlety, undetectable post-mortem, a phantom killer echoing divine mysteries. Motives? Samuel's age masked elimination of the unproductive, Ruth's pregnancy, perhaps a threat if the child was not her husband's, Jonas, vocal against Barrett's favoritism, silenced before rebellion seeded. Seeking threads, she cornered Jacob at stable hand, ears attuned to loose tongues during saddlings. Jonas seemed burdened, she probed, exchanging water pails. His eyes darted, trust earned through years of shared scraps. Complained of Barrett's biases, hard rose for the outspoken. Punishment followed, stump-riddled plots breaking backs. Rumors deeper, Jonas entangled with Lily, housemaid. Their tryst to theft from the master's domain. No flogging ensued, only death's discretion. Lily, 16, now relegated to gardens, her lithe form bent over rows, supervised like Eve postfall. Approaching under guise of herb gathering, Eliza paralleled her labor, soil cool under fingers. Lily broke silence. "You knew him?" Affirmation. He dreamed of flight to Ohio's promise, carving trinkets for coin. Foolish hope, a modern exodus doomed by Pharaoh's hounds. Tears furrowed dirt on her cheeks, love's lament in a land of loss. Patterns emerged, deaths not random, but reckonings. Samuel had overheard Edward's debts, muttering in stables. Ruth carried Barrett's child, whispers said. Jonas challenged authority. Poison as equalizer, sin's harvest reaped. Eliza felt the spiritual chill. Was this divine justice, or human hubris aping God? Guilt coiled in her gut, redemption's path obscured. Knowledge, once shield, now sword poised to cut, but at what cost? As days blurred, surveillance intensified, Catherine's gloved hands hiding tremors, Edward's averted gaze at table, Margaret's knowing stares, Edward Jr.'s probing. Meals served with dread, each bite a potential accusation. The estate breathes conspiracy, winds carrying spectral warnings. Eliza pondered scripture, the wicked plotteth against the just, yet the Lord is my shepherd. In this garden of poisons, where sin bloomed unchecked, she stood as witness, haunted by legacies of retribution, teetering on Revelation's precipice. The veil of suspicion had descended upon Riverside like a biblical shroud, turning every glance into an accusation, every whisper a potential confession. In the crisp dawn of that fateful week, Eliza moved through the kitchen with the precision of a sentinel, her knife slicing onions in rhythmic cadence, tears stinging her eyes not from the fumes alone, but from the weight of unspoken horrors. The air was thick with the aroma of simmering broth, earthy carrots mingling with the sharp bite of garlic, a deceptive comfort in a world unraveling at its seams. Outside, the Pearl River murmured secrets to the willows, their branches drooping like weary prophets burdened by foreknowledge of doom. Eliza's mind raced, piecing together Lily's fragmented plea, an escape thwarted by death's untimely scythe, Jonas felled not by fate, but by a hand guided by malice. The desperation in Lily's eyes echoed the Israelites' flight from Egypt, freedom a mirage, pursuit inevitable, divine intervention a desperate prayer. Understanding bloomed like nightshade in Eliza's soul. If Jonas had been silenced to smother rebellion, the poisoner possessed eyes in the shadows, ears in the silence. How had the plan leaked? A careless word in the stables, a stolen moment overheard beneath the oaks? That evening, as the sun bled crimson across the fields, Eliza cornered Miriam in the dim glow of the kitchen lantern, its flame sputtering like a faltering faith. Plates clattered softly as they scrubbed remnants of the collier's supper, roast fowl glazed with honey, now reduced to scraps for the hogs. Saw Lily weeping by the herb beds, Eliza murmured, her voice a threadbare veil over dread. Still mourning Jonas, I reckon. Miriam's cloth paused mid-wipe, her gaze darting to the manor's silhouette, windows aglow like watchful eyes. Overheard the mistress chiding the master about it last month. I was pinning her ham when he stormed in. She spied Lily sneaking out at witching hours, suspected a beau. Begged him to sniff it out. Eliza's pulse quickened, a drumbeat of revelation. And his reply? Said he'd tend to it. Stone cold. Miriam's face etched with unease, the timeline a noose tightening, 2 sons before Jonas convulsed in agony, his end scripted as spoiled flesh. The puzzle sharpened into a blade of truth. Edward, lord of this earthly hell, had unearthed the lover's scheme not as scandal, but as theft of his dominion. Jonas's demise? No public flogging to stir the quarter's unrest or draw neighbors' pious scrutiny, instead, a veiled execution, Arsenic's whisper mimicking nature's cruelty, evading the gaze of man and perhaps God himself. Yet Samuel and Ruth lingered as enigmas, their graves fresh scars on the land. What sins had they committed against the collier's throne? Or were their threads woven into a broader tapestry of retribution, divine or demonic? Eliza's week blurred into a vigil of shadows, her senses attuned like David's harp to the winds of conspiracy. The kitchen became her confessional, steam rising from pots like incense to a heedless deity. Catherine's retching ceased, her belly swelling with promise or peril, confirming the seed of life amid death's harvest. Edward's temper mellowed to a simmer, though his study echoed with muttered curses over ledgers, ink bleeding like wounds on parchment. Margaret withdrew into solitude, her room a sanctuary of tomes, her eyes holding the wisdom of Eve after the fall, knowing too much, too soon. Young Edward's curiosities darkened, he shadowed the slaughter shed, quizzing the butcher on veins and vitals, his questions probing like serpent's fangs. Eliza parried with platitudes, God's design is mystery, young master, but his grin chilled her marrow, a foreshadow of inherited sin. Thomas Barrett loomed larger, his boots thudding unannounced at her threshold, breath reeking of corn liquor. Sharp one, ain't ya, he drawled one sweltering noon, his bulk eclipsing the door's light, casting her in eclipse. Eliza's knife hovered over potatoes, peel curling like shed skins. Just mint in my pots, sir. His stare bored holes, heard ya pokin' round 'bout Jonas. Nosy business. Her heart thundered like Sinai's quake, but voice steady as Ruth's gleaning, he supped my stew afore he passed. Gotta know if my hand slipped. Doc said bad meat. Meat was sound. Tasted it myself. Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. His eyes calculated, predator assessing prey. Maybe something else got him. Something outside your domain. The implication hung, venomous, warning laced with threat. He sauntered off, but his shadow lingered, a specter of judgment. Eliza's resolve hardened that twilight, seeking wisdom from Ezekiel, once Josiah, the estate's ancient oak at 73, roots deep in 40 years of bondage. His cabin hunkered at the quarter's edge, smoke curling from the chimney like prayers ascending. She found him on a weathered stool, whittling wood into a dove, a symbol of peace or harbinger of flood? Eliza, his voice gravelly as prophetic thunder. Moon's high for kitchen folk. Legs needed stretch and dot. She perched on a log, the night air buzzing with crickets' lament, fireflies flickering like souls unbound. Ezekiel, ever folk perish queer like here? Ends that smelled of roan? His blade halted, eyes piercing the gloom. Perilous query. Need truth. Silence enveloped them, broken only by an owl's mournful call, a omen of death in old lore. Then, carving resumed, words measured as Solomon's judgments, old master ruled fair, harsh, but steady. Knew your place. Past 8 winters back, young Edward ascended. Shifted winds. How so? Boys' hungers swell beyond pockets. Craves planter kingship, senate whispers, bows from betters who scorn him small fry. Such crave birth's folly. Knife-shaved sliver, pushed borders he couldn't bankroll. Sugar folly drains coffers. Cotton fickle. Mortgaged tomorrows, vowed to lenders what harvests might deny. Desperation's seed, Eliza pondered, sprouting thorns of iniquity. These passings tie to his woes? Ain't claimin'. But cornered beasts lash. His gaze locked, Samuel alone recalled the patriarch's testament clauses. If Edward faltered, estate crumbled. Breath seized in her throat, inheritance's sword of Damocles. What clauses? Details fuzzy, but Edward grilled Samuel last season. Man's memory ironclad, echoed yesteryears verbatim. Ruth's threat unraveled next, house duty pre-belly. Tallied ledgers for mistress, numerals her gift read, reckon sharper than most. Catherine confided privy sums. Jonas? Escape plot with Lily, chambermaid to intimacies, ears to boudoir secrets. 3 vessels of knowledge, 3 silenced by shadow's hand. Ezekiel, Eliza ventured, voice hushed as midnight vespers, quiet kill on these grounds, how? His whittling ceased, eyes thunderheads, wise soul shuns such probes. Head low, lips sealed. I'm ensnared. Sigh escaped, ancient as Babel's fall, poison sly. No scars, ape's ailment if dosed cunning. Hitch, procurin, Dawson Sands snare. Who holds keys? Mistress hoards elixirs, vermin bane in stillroom vault. Her lock alone. Pause waited, so folk reckon. Eliza's pilfered key burned against her thigh, a stolen fire from Olympus. And mastery? Learned one. Schooled in greens and cures, like Catherine, kin proud of hearth healings. Revelation crashed like Jericho's walls, not Edward the tyrant, but Catherine the veiled avenger? Guardian of hearth, eliminator of threats? Motives swirled, shielding spouse's frailties, or harboring her own melancholy's mask for darker deeds? Power's illusion in wifely chains, sin's redemption through blood? Eliza retreated, mind a whirlwind of webs, finances frayed, secrets guarded, suspects manifold. Time ebbed like sand in the glass, Barrett's vigil tightened, a hound on scent. Dawn's light pierced the haze next morn, summoning Eliza to the manor, a rare decree, nerves fraying like frayed hemp. Catherine awaited in the parlor, sunlight filtering through lace curtains like bars of a gilded cage, her pallor ghostly, eyes shadowed as Job's afflictions. Hands clasped, knuckles white as bone. Eliza, a sensitive matter. Ma'am. Word reaches me of your inquiries, Samuel, Ruth, Jonas's departures. Throat parched as wilderness wander, fretted, ma'am. Jonas dined my fare. Feared fault. Physician deemed tainted flesh. Flesh fresh. Sampled it. Scrutiny pierced, your zeal commends. Yet queries stir phantoms. Tongues wag, fables breed, household ill affords specters. Edge honed, grasp your station? Cuisine excels, service steadfast. But loyalty demands silence, queries posed, others entombed. Velvet gauntlet, threat veiled in velvet. Crystal, ma'am. No more. Softening false, harmony restored. Resume labors. Eliza fled, heart hammering like blacksmith's anvil, warnings echo a death knell. Intervention bespoke, vulnerability touched, nerve struck. Forked path loomed, submission, blind to blade's descent, or stealthy pursuit, armor of proof. Passivity? Lamb to slaughter. Agency? Risky gambit, but echo of Esther's courage, for such a time as this. She chose defiance, veiled in routine. Weeks dragged, facade impeccable, dough kneaded with fervor, stews spiced to perfection, senses sentinel. Catherine retreated to chambers, pleading gestation's toll, yet. Tremors vanished, stability or schemes calm? Garden vigils lengthened, fingers brushing foxgloves lethal bells, harvesting with purpose failed. Edward's ire flared, bellows at offspring, servants cowering like Israelites before Pharaoh. Study nights prolonged, Barrett emerging furrowed, conferences cloaked in cigar haze. Young Edward's depravity deepened, feline corpse mangled, alibi flimsy as fig leaves. Margaret discovered, quaking, Catherine chided mildly, Edward deaf. Barrett shadowed Eliza, presence oppressive as plague's cloud, lurking, leering, strike imminent. Pivotal dawn, Lily at threshold, dispatched for nausea brew. Girl emaciated, hands quivering like aspen leaves. Eileen, child? Tears brimmed, sound, Miss Eliza. Lies poorly. Glance furtive, terror grips. Of. Whisper frail, can't voice, but if woe befalls, footfalls neared, flight swift. Omen lingered, seed of unfinished gospel. Midnight's cloak, resolve crystallized. Intrusion's peril, lash, auction, noose, but secret's vault beckoned. House slumbered, lamps doused. Key turned, halls navigated ghostlike, floors creaking accusations. Study first, desk strewn with damnation, creditors' demands, bankers' ultimatums, tallies prophesying ruin. Drawer yielded gem, missive from Kin Charles, antedating Samuel's fall by moons. Recalled paternal decree. The study's air hung stagnant, laced with the musty scent of aged leather and ink, the flickering candle casting elongated shadows that danced like demons across the walls. Eliza's fingers trembled on the parchment, the words searing into her soul like brands from the underworld, Charles Collier's missive, a serpent's scroll unraveling Edward's desperation. 5 years post-Patriarch's demise, the estate's profitability the litmus of legacy. If faltered, Riverside would slip to Charles, Edward reduced to beggar's alms. April's milestone mocked him, an auditor dispatched, whispers exchanged with Samuel, whose memory unearthed buried deceits, inflated yields, phantom collaterals, loans devouring the future like locusts on biblical fields. Samuel's June collapse? No apoplexy, but annihilation, to safeguard the throne. Eliza froze, breath caged in her chest, the letter a burning coal. Motive crystallized, Edward, or his proxy, eradicated threats to dominion. Ruth's ledger insights, Jonas's overheard plots stumbled stones in his path, crushed under poison's heel. Footfalls echoed from above, deliberate as judgment's gavel, descending the oak stairs with creaking inevitability. Panic surged, she extinguished the flame, diving behind the massive desk, its mahogany bulk a fragile arc in the flood. Darkness enveloped her, heart pounding like tribal drums summoning spirits. The intruder navigated the hall, entering the kitchen cabinets groaned open, glass chimed softly, water trickled like tears from a penitent. Minutes stretched eternal, then retreat, ascent, silence reclaiming the night. Eliza emerged, limbs leaden, restoring the desk's order with meticulous care, each paper aligned as before, lest a misplaced fold betray her. Slipping through shadows to her annex, mind ablaze, Arsenic's. Source? Edward's duplicate key, or Catherine's collusion, a marital pact sealing sins in silence? Spiritual torment nod, was this Cain's curse revisited, brother against brother, blood for birthright? Dawn's gray light pierced her vigil, questions coiling like vines around her faith. Morning's routine shattered with screams from the manor, piercing wails echoing like banshees foretelling doom. Eliza's spatula clattered, visions flashing, discovery of her trespass, or calamity befalling the Colliers? Terror propelled her across the dew-kissed lawn, skirt whipping like flags in storm. Chaos reigned in the grand hall, Catherine at stairs crest, nightgown spectral white, face ashen as the damned, mouth agape in unending lament. Edward bounded upward, boots thundering. Servants converged, faces etched with dread's hieroglyphs. What plague? Eliza gripped Miriam's arm. Miss Margaret, stricken grievous. Ice veined Eliza's blood, she ascended, unbidden, drawn by inexorable pull. Margaret's chamber yawned open, the girl prostrate on linens soaked in sweat, skin pallid as moonlit marble, basin fouled with vomit's acrid evidence. Edward bellowed for the doctor, voice cracking like thunder. Catherine clung to the jamb, sobs racking her frame, a pieta of despair. From the threshold, Eliza divined the horror, last night's kitchen intruder, preparing a tainted draught, perhaps milk laced with death. Margaret, insomniac wanderer, had imbibed unwittingly. Poison's kiss, arsenic's embrace, symptoms mirroring the prior triad, but whose hand? Edward's misaimed arrow? Catherine's fractured psyche, pregnancy's madness birthing monstrosity? Or Margaret targeted, her knowing eyes a threat veiled? The physician arrived on lathered steed, his bag of Pandora's trove. Eliza eavesdropped from alcoves. Fragments drifting, toxic ingestion, purge forthwith, mayhaps too late. Afternoon waned, Margaret slipped into eternal repose, consciousness forsaken, her final breath a sigh echoing the wind through cotton. Morning cloaked Riverside, black crepe draping mirrors like veils over sins, but beneath grief's veneer lurked terror's undercurrent. The colliers sensed murder's taint, no natural thief of youth, but human malice stalking halls. Paranoia blossomed, a thorned rose in Eden's ruins. The ensuing week transmuted the estate into suspicion's labyrinth. Edward's interrogations raged, fists slamming tables, demanding kitchen nocturnes confessed. Silence prevailed, fear's muzzle tighter than chains, blame's spectre loomed larger than truth's light. Eliza sealed her lips on her own shadows, intrusion's admission a new self-tide. She had grazed no victuals, merely pilfered knowledge, yet verdict would condemn sans mercy. Catherine retreated to bedchamber's gloom, laudanum's haze her refuge, physician's elixirs dulling edges of loss. Edward spiraled into frenzy, convinced familial siege by phantom foe truth half-grasped, ignorance his blindfold. Barrett amplified vigils, lanterns patrolling perimeters, curfews chaining dusk's freedoms, deviations probed like heresies. His gaze bored into Eliza, a constant thorn, suspicion's weight crushing. But young Edward's demeanor chilled deepest, no tears at graveside, no child's wail, instead, avid scrutiny of rite and mourner, casket's descent studied as anatomical wonder. His smile, caught twice on Eliza, twisted innocence into something infernal, a cherub fallen, delighting in decay. For Dawn's post-interment, Lily vanished from Dawn's muster. Catherine, emerging from seclusion like a ghost from tomb, dispatched searchers. Discovery, quarters palate, Lily comatose, breaths shallow as whispers. Physician summoned anew, his probe grim, breath's metallic tang, pulse feebled poison, kin to Margaret's bane. Edward's fury ignited, room ransacked under Barrett's command. Beneath mattress, arsenic vial, stillroom's pilfered sin. Confessed to forfeit, Barrett proclaimed to huddled throng, visage granite. Escape schemed, vengeance for Jonas. Targeted Missy in wrath's misfire, then self-doom and remorse. Fabrication's gloss shone too bright, Eliza pierced the veil, frame up, scapegoat slain to staunch inquiry. Protest? Suicide, exposing her sleuthing, keys theft, arsenic's audit. Lily ebbed without rally, twilight claiming her. Burial hasty, disgrace's corner in the boneyard, soil heaped sans prayer. Eliza observed afar, guilt's boulders crushing, Lily's aborted warning, her inaction a betrayal. As clods thudded, vow forged, truth's unveiling, cost be damned redemption's path through fire. Re-examination commenced, facts refracted anew. Vial planted, Barrett's hand? Yet arsenic's procurement demanded stillroom breach. Midnight raid, keys turn, room's sanctity violated. Jars aligned, but arsenic's vessel void, depleted in serial slayings, evidence evaporated. Scrutiny deepened, doorframe's soft pine, child height gouge EJ, carved claim. Revelation thundered, the boy. His queries on herbs and errors, death's allure, grief's absence, threads weaving monstrosity. Impossible? Folklore whispered otherwise, neighboring tales of progeny twisted, harming beasts, kin revenges seedlings in immature soil. Edward Jr., Samuel slighted, Ruth tattled, Jonas witnessed, Margaret exposed? Child's whims, not adult stratagems, impulsive, erratic. Access? Key filched or forged, poison's playground perils. Proof elusive, slave's accusation versus heir's word? Flogging, noose, torment prelude. Chance 3 sons hence, boy in kitchen, gaze piercing as augurs. New lily's end, casual as play. Eliza's rhythm faltered. Nay, master. I, unsurprised. Grieved profound. False. Proximity invasive, child's mask adult cunning. Poisons your lore, plants perils. Knife set aside, mistress masters more. Mother slumbers, you vigil. Smile serpentine, hence your breath. Threat veiled, veins frosted. Duty soul. Deeper delving. Comprehend the saga. Head cocked, silent you stay, disbelief your chain. Powers calculus, precocious dread. Befuddled. Nay. Harmless to you, utility, game. Exit paused, Margaret snitched on feline. Deemed me ill, exile loomed. Barred that. Confession dropped like pebble in well, ripples damning. Why confide? Grin broadened, knew already. Crave acclaims witness. Children undervalued, cunning concealed. Others? Samuel prattled privy, Ruth snared me in stillroom, vowed tell, Jonas, trial. Field fair feigned yours. Triumph. Nausea surged, recital in treble tone. Lily scapegoat. Key, vial planted, Barrett tipped on suspicion. He complicit? Laughter unholy, blind all, father doubts mother, she him, Barrett both. Spectacle divine. Departure left Eliza quaking, horror's totality, killer unmasked, confessed in safety's arrogance. Report? Martyrdom futile. Slay? Echoed fate. Flight? Chains pursuit endless. Trapped with juvenile fiend, knowledge her cage. Sleepless vigil, dilemma's facets turned like cursed gem. Vows echo, exposure sans self-sacrifice? Ezekiel's counsel phantom, navigate impossibles. Epiphany dawned, safeguard sans direct strike, seed sown for revelation's harvest. Mourn's plan, stillroom's final trespass. Elixirs tainted, harmless additives birthing spectacle, retching vivid, rashes scarlet, symptoms screaming sabotage, not stealth. Future forays foiled, scrutiny summoned. Then Ezekiel, Sunday repose, cabin's shade. Counsel crave, knowledge of ill, speech self-damns? Knife halted, peril peaks. Options nil. Scrutiny, endangers kin? Potent. Shield sans peril? Strive, bequeath clues if fall. Would set, impart essentials. Hours discourse, narrative veiled. The Sunday afternoon sun hung low, painting the quarters in hues of burnt amber and shadow, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke and drying laundry. Eliza sat beside Ezekiel on the rough-hewn bench outside his cabin, the old man's carving knife idle in his lap for once, the half-formed dove forgotten on the ground. She spoke in measured tones, weaving a tapestry of facts without threading the boy's name through it, careful as a seamstress hiding stitches. The pattern of deaths, spaced, disparate, yet bound by arsenic's invisible thread. The emptied jar in the stillroom, its crystalline death vanished like manna reversed. The carved mark on the doorframe, small and defiant at child height. The questions about poisons, the fascination with suffering, the absence of grief where grief should have wept. She described the demand for a special tea, the threat of exposure, the midnight shadows she had glimpsed but never claimed as her own. No accusations, only signposts pointing toward an abyss any discerning eye might recognize. If I should fall sudden-like, she concluded, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, find a way to Charles Collier. The brother. He hungered for proof Edward mismanaged Riverside debts, lies, losses hidden like sin. These deaths, the poison, the strangeness, give him that. He'll summon eyes that can see where mine cannot. Investigators. Questions I dare not ask. Ezekiel regarded her with the weight of decades endured. Even without your voice, truth might surface. That's the prayer. You're gambling your breath, girl. Already spent. He placed his gnarled hand over hers, warm, calloused, a rare sacrament of solidarity. Tears pricked Eliza's eyes, she blinked them back. I'll hold every word. If need comes, Charles hears my oath. A brief squeeze, then release. Tread light, Hannah. Whatever path you walk now, tread exceeding light. She returned to the kitchen under twilight's bruise-colored sky, the hearth's embers glowing like watchful eyes. Outwardly unchanged, kneading dough, stirring pots, yet a fragile peace settled. Someone knew. Someone would bear witness if she could not. Justice, deferred perhaps, but not wholly denied. A seed planted in fertile soil of vengeance and legacy. 3 dawns later, the boy appeared at the kitchen threshold, silhouette small against the morning glare, yet presence vast as shadow at noon. His smile arrived first, curved, knowing, a blade sheathed in dimples. Need a special tea, Eliza? Mother's morning sickness lingers. Her own brew fails. I wish to gift her relief. Ice crystallized in Eliza's veins. Catherine, next offering on his altar. Had the mistress glimpsed the monster behind the child's mask? Questioned too closely? Or did he merely crave the experiment, the ultimate transgression, matricide as curiosity's crown? Your mother's physician holds that wisdom, young master, she replied, voice even as a measured pour. Best he prescribe. I want to craft it. You know the plants. Tell me which. Beyond my place to medicate the mistress. His face tightened, innocence cracking like thin ice. Liar. Everyone whispers you command every leaf, root, berry on this land, what heals, what harms. Talk inflates truth. He advanced a step, voice dropping to conspiratorial silk. Brew it, or I tell father you prowl the big house at night. Stealing. I saw you in his study, candle low, reading secrets. Papers rustling under your fingers. The words struck like a lash across bare skin. He had watched. From Margaret's darkened room, perhaps, eyes open when all should have slept. He had held this card, patient as a spider, waiting for leverage. Refusal meant search, discovery of the duplicate key, assumption of guilt for every death. Trial by accusation, execution swift. Compliance meant Catherine's murder, blood on her hands, however coerced. The trap closed with exquisite cruelty, forged by a mind too young for mercy, too old for innocence. A third path glimmered, desperate and narrow. I'll prepare the tea, she said slowly. But fresh herbs from the garden first. Takes time. His smile bloomed anew. I'll wait. She stepped into the garden, pulse roaring like river in flood, hands gathering chamomile, mint, lavender, innocence all, soothing yet harmless. Panic clawed, flight invited pursuit, outcry invited his lies, poison invited blame. Then she saw him, Thomas Barrett, at the garden's rim, arms crossed, gaze steady. Their eyes met. In that instant, desperation birthed decision. She crossed the rows, soil clinging to her ham like guilt, and spoke before terror could choke her. Mr. Barrett, I must confess a peril. Master Edward Jr. bids me brew medicinal tea for Mrs. Collier. I fear he intends poison. Barrett's brow furrowed, suspicion warring with astonishment. Grave charge, woman. Graver still, I believe him author of all the deaths. Accessing his mother's stillroom. Using her remedies to kill. Now her. Calculation flickered in his eyes, slave's word against white air's sanctity. Found his mark carved in the stillroom frame. He's questioned poisons deep. Confessed fragments only the slayer should know. Please, sir, Mrs. Collier's breath hangs by moments. Silence stretched, taut as bowstring. Then, stay. He strode toward the manor, vanishing inside. Eliza remained rooted, herbs wilting in her fists, breath shallow. Salvation or condemnation? 20 minutes crawled like hours before Barrett re-emerged with Edward Collier, faces carved from granite. They entered the kitchen. Through the open door, Eliza glimpsed the boy's shift from smug certainty to sudden alarm as his father spoke low, urgent. Conversation dragged. Edward exited, ashen, retreating to the house. Barrett followed. The boy, fury contorting his features, was led away by a servant. Miriam appeared, breathless. Barrett summons you. Main house. Explain all, he says. Each step toward the manor felt like procession to gallows or altar. In the study, Barrett formal, Edward rigid, physician summoned from Catherine's bedside. "Tell them," Barrett commanded. "Every word you gave me of Master Edward Jr. in these deaths." Eliza spoke, carefully pruned. "No stolen key, no nocturnal trespass into ledgers. Only the death's rhythm, arsenic's depletion, carved initial, boy's morbid inquiries, confession's chill, demand for lethal tea." Edward's face journeyed from rage denial to ashen horror. When she finished, he turned to the physician. "Can a child?" The old doctor nodded gravely. "Medical texts record such aberrations, youth devoid of conscience, acting on impulse, emotion unfiltered by adult restraint. We sought motive grand, greed, vengeance. A child's logic is smaller, sharper, slight, threat, whim. Bold because unsuspected. Why no suspicion?" Edward's voice cracked. "We refuse to see," the physician answered softly. "Belief protects us from monstrosity in our own blood." Edward paced, fists white-knuckled. Horror warred with paternal love, legacy shattered. To Eliza, why silence so long? Dangerous ground. "Sir," suspicion dawned late. "Proof absent. Accusation without evidence meant my end, not justice. I gathered shadows quietly until warned. When he confessed and demanded I aid murder, silence broke. I had no safe path till today. Close enough to truth, omissions her armor." Edward studied her, unreadable. "You knew my son a killer and held tongue." "No safe tongue, sir, until peril forced speech, though it might doom me." Barrett interceded, "She risked all coming to me." Edward's jaw worked, but he did not refute. To the physician, "What now for my son? Institutions exist, specialized, secure. Remove him swiftly. For his soul's chance, and all our safety. He will kill again if free." Pain etched Edward's features, yet nod came. "Arrange it. Far. Within the week. Constant watch." Barrett, authorities? Long silence. Scandal loomed, reputation, inquiries, perhaps legal shadow even for a child untried. "We say accidents. Illness. Tragic, natural losses. No more. Catherine, Margaret's memory, spared scandal." Pause. "Lily? Hardening. Framed, Hannah swears?" "Yes, sir." He boasted it. "Then honor her. Move her remains. Proper grave. Marked." Small mercy, yet it eased something in Eliza's chest. Edward regarded her once more, expression layered, gratitude, wariness, guilt. "You served this house where self-preservation might have ruled." "I remember it. Return to duties. Dismissal laced with reprieve." Legs trembling, she left the study, scarcely believing breath still hers. 5 nights later, under moonless cover, carriage bore Edward Jr. away to Pennsylvania's distant asylum, lights dim, wheels muffled, boy vanishing into night like a bad dream expelled. From her window, Eliza watched until darkness swallowed him, carrying Riverside's truth into exile. Official chronicle, misfortune's natural age, pregnancy's peril, tainted fare, sudden sickness, grief's despair. Tidy. False. Among the quarters, truth circulated in glances, hushed spirituals, nods across fields. Eliza's part unspoken yet known, courage in chains, navigation of impossible straits. Legend in silence, Catherine mended slowly, cradling unborn life as atonement's fragile promise. No direct words to Eliza, but tokens appeared, bolt of fine cloth, warmer blanket, preserves glowing ruby in jars, unspoken gratitude etched in gesture. Edward aged overnight, ambition's fire banked to embers, guilt and grief etching deeper lines than debt ever carved. Distance grew between husband and wife, two souls bound by horror, unable to bridge it. Plantation rhythms endured, cotton bloomed white as lies, sugar dreams withered, debts mounted like interest on sin. Edward clung to ownership through ever riskier loans, mortgaging tomorrows against uncertain harvests. Eliza remained at her hearth, stirring, seasoning, feeding those who deemed her less than human. Yet she saw all: the boy's departure, the family's fractures, the estate's slow bleed. Her knowledge of poisons endured, shield and burden eternal. Every leaf, berry, seed catalogued, their mercy, their malice, their mimicry of fate. Never wielded, never surrendered. In extremis, if bondage became annihilation, option existed. Strange power in a powerless world, understanding death's mechanisms when life offered none. She bore Riverside's deepest truths: the child's confession, Margaret's murder, Lily's innocence, Edward's deceptions, Catherine's fragility, like stones sewn into hems, heavy, hidden, carried always. Most would descend to her grave unspoken, utterance invited only peril. This was antebellum survival: witness in whisper, truth in silence, power in knowledge withheld. Justice incomplete, mercy partial, redemption elusive. Yet in the kitchen's heat, amid steam and spice, she claimed quiet victory. She had endured. She had spoken when speech meant ruin. She had ensured one life spared, one lie pierced, one scapegoat honored. History would erase her name, but memory, among those who shared her chains, would not. The cook who knew every poison in the house had lived. And in living, she had kept the truth alive, even if only in the guarded silence of the oppressed.